Alright. Today was pretty active. A couple more days of slight risk ahead, but Thursday leaves me hopeful. Maybe we can see an end to this slight risk streak that has existed for the last 69 plus days. But with that being said, I also need to make sure that everything else is good. Tropics have stayed quiet. Let's hope that remains the same. Hey YouTube, Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well. So in this one, we're going to be talking about the tropics here. Tropics have been pretty quiet over the last little bit, especially the last month or so, I would say. But if you look at this right here, times might be changing. So this is a 7-day outlook. These two areas here in particular have a 30% chance of development. And then there's actually an area over here towards the Gulf, which is really concerning. It has right now 20% chance of developing. Thing is, the Gulf of Mexico is almost at records as far as temperatures are concerned. So if wind shear lightens up around this region, which it very well could with the pattern that we have up ahead, if you want to see more about that pattern, link to that video will be in the top right corner. But all the conditions could come together here for a couple of big storms, possibly even. Right now, I'm not for sure whether or not that'll happen, but we need to be on alert here in the Gulf Coast states. We could end up seeing something major. We may end up seeing a smaller storm, but either way, the impacts will be felt. But this is what we're looking at on satellite right now. I won't expect much of anything happening in the Gulf in the meantime, but these two tropical waves also warrant plenty of attention in their own right. Either one of these could become our next named storm. So that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at other parts of the world. Let's look towards the Eastern Pacific, where things are very active right now. We have a new area that's going to develop over here. This is probably going to turn into our next named storm for the Eastern Pacific. And this one will be Hillary. And then also, of course, we have Hurricane Fernando, which is at a Category 2 with winds up to 105. I anticipate Fernando to be a fish storm, but I've been seeing some interesting things with this potential tropical cyclone here. This could end up heading towards Cali or making a very close pass to California. So we'll get into that in just a moment here. And also, if you're wondering, but Ty, where's the G name storm? We have Fernando. We can't just skip to Hillary. Here you go. Here's Greg right here. It's off to the southeast of Hawaii here. Will not make any impacts to Hawaii. We can actually go ahead and take a look and verify that with the path here. This isn't expected to strengthen any further. In fact, it's going to start to really go on a weakening trend here, so nothing to really be concerned with here. It could increase the rip currents here. Fortunately, it will not bring any moisture soon enough to help out with the fire situation that happened in Maui. It's a very unfortunate situation going on over there. If you can help, I urge you to do so. Going to be there's plenty of outlets out there, all kinds of sources to help you do that. So that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next part of this and just take a look at the worldwide view as far as the tropics are concerned. Off towards the northwest Pacific, nothing really going on. I mean, there's actually a couple of tropical systems, but they're not expected to strengthen any further than what they are now. We have Tropical Depression Dora, and we have Tropical Storm Lan, both of which are already in the process of either making impact on land or weakening. So with that being said here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at both of these. If I can get my map to comply here. This just went past Japan here, and it's going to be heading into cooler waters. And then this system here is pretty much going to end up being a fish storm. So anyone that's out towards Asia, not a whole lot to worry about right now. So there's some good news for you there. So if we were to go look at where our next tropical disturbance is going to be heading, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that one in particular. You can kind of see the little cone here developing. We're going to make a pretty close pass to the Baja here. We'll really have to pick this out more on models more than anything else, but definitely definitely seeing a few trends that kind of lead towards Cali here. Again, here's another look at the Atlantic and the Central Pacific here. There's Fernanda, there's Greg, and then of course what is likely to become Hillary afterwards is over towards the Eastern Pacific. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the models real quick before we get into what will become Hillary. This is a look at the wind shear right now over these regions in the over the entire Atlantic, I would say. And you see that there's still plenty of wind shear right here, but there is a little pocket that starts to develop around where these tropical waves are anticipated to really start to flourish. And then over here, we do start to see some weakening towards the Gulf as far as the wind shear is concerned. This is exactly what I've been worried about. I've been talking about the potential of this for a little while now. Just thankfully up until now, it hasn't had a chance to come to fruition. But based off what I'm seeing here, we could see maybe Texas or even Louisiana end up catching a piece of whatever load decides to develop over there, should it do so. Nonetheless, that warrants our attention. And then, of course, this corridor, once it starts to open up here, we have to keep an eye on the western parts of Africa here, which is normally where we see a lot of our tropical waves during this time of year. Of course, also the threat of tropical systems close to home also exists as well, especially since we're entering that pattern, as I said before, with that ridge. That ridge will sometimes do a good job of clearing out a lot of that really strong wind shear that will tear those storms apart long before they really form here. So that being said, things could pick up with this setup that we're dealing with right now, this pattern. So let's go ahead and compare that to the European ensemble. It's not going to be too much different here. So I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning here. And it's pretty much, like I said, pretty much a similar deal. No surprises there. We do see weakening of wind shear in both regions, here and here. And this trend really looks to hold throughout the rest of the month here. So it makes sense given the time of year. This is towards peak hurricane season. So the potential for tropical waves is definitely going to be on the rise here. As far as the Caribbean's concerned, I'm not too concerned about that as of yet. But you definitely need to be paying attention. Because once these tropical waves get rolling, usually it'll take a good bit of wind shear to slow these down. And by this point right now, in the latter half of the month, that's when things really start to lighten up across that region too. So we have to keep an extra close eye if you're over towards Cuba, heading towards, of course, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Bahamas, of course, too. So a lot of attention is warranted. So here's a look at what our ensemble members could look like here as well. We'll just run this in a loop here. It's running a little slow, so we're just going to speed her up here. But you can see multiple solutions for multiple low pressures ongoing here as we continue to go forward. You see a lot of outcomes leaning towards Texas, and then more of them are starting to lean towards the southeast here too. So, like I said, business definitely seems like it's about to pick up once again. There was a point earlier in the season where we were kind of seeing that, and then it quickly dropped off just as quickly as there was speculation of it really getting going here. But it's good to see agreement across the ensembles here. The GFS and Euro ensembles are both kind of picking up on storms developing here. Tracks do look a little bit different here, so it'll be interesting to see which of the two went out, because usually what we see on ensembles will eventually transition over to more the operational runs. Although interestingly enough, what we saw in the GFS ensembles actually also been shown on the operational run too. So like I said, definitely a lot of interesting stuff going on here, and a lot to keep track of. So let's transition over to the Pacific here, and we already know the environment's more than favorable enough for development. Here's what's most likely to be Hillary, by the way, here. The saving grace with this storm is that it runs into a lot of wind shear. This is the wind shear that I'm talking about here. So it doesn't really get a lot of room to work with here, and will most likely weaken as it tries to get closer to land here. That's typically what happens if you see any sort of a tropical feature get close to anywhere like California. It'll start to fade out before it gets over there. Waters are also a little bit colder towards this region too. So nothing major to be concerned with if you live in California, but nonetheless, definitely need to pay attention. This could definitely affect your rainfall over there. But Euro also looks like it's a pretty similar deal here. Wind shear actually looks a tiny bit stronger, but also it looks like this storm gets kicked out a little bit further too. But we'll have to see how things play out. But either way, it looks like in either case, wind shear is going to help protect the California coastline from anything major occurring. That, and most likely the water temperatures here, like I said before, are going to be cold once again. We'll try and take a look at those before the end of the video. But as we continue to go forward here, once we get to about 360 hours out, wind shear does lighten back up. So this area will be favorable for additional development once again. So let's look at the ensemble members with this. No real surprises here. This has been a hotbed all year, and it looks like that trend will continue. And then, of course, interestingly enough, there are times where we have situations where some of these storms that go from the Atlantic across the Gulf, especially past the Yucatan, will get back out into the Pacific and start life as a new named storm. So it's another interesting thing to keep an eye on there. If something happens, I'll probably try and post a video about it, especially if you guys are looking for it. I know it's for some of you it might be entertaining. It is for me. But normally with Eastern Pacific storms, most of these end up being pretty harmless. Every once in a while you'll get a hurricane that hits over towards western Mexico, and maybe the Baja every once in a while. So looking at the Euro here, it's a pretty similar deal. No real surprise there. Just making sure that we're covering our P's and Q's mainly at this point, but it's a similar deal. And then last but not least, over towards Central Pacific, over toward Hawaii in particular. Nothing really set to head their way either. A lot of wind shear over this area as well, so not expecting too much going on here. Nothing really of note. And then, of course, last but not least, the ensemble models, or the ensemble members, I should say. And it's going to be a pretty similar deal. No point in looking at the Euro and the GFS on this one because they're both pretty much showing the same thing. Nothing really coming close to either area. So last but not least, we'll go ahead and look at the SST, sea surface temps, and we'll go on from there. So here's a look at our sea surface temperatures. This was from the 14th, today is the 15th, and you can see, just as I was referring to, just past the Baja here, heading towards a little bit more towards mainland California here. There is a little bit of a drop off in temperatures there. You can see the warmer temperatures indicated in the orange around the Gulf. So like I said, very concerned about that in particular. Then this pocket over here towards Hawaii with the wind shear and cooler sea surface temperatures. It's not really going to give much in the way of tropical development there. It's still quite a hotbed over here towards the Northwest Pacific, so I might keep an eye on that. We could see some big storms from that. And then, of course, we're starting to see the rest of the Atlantic, especially over towards the main development region, start to heat up. So anytime that we start to lose a little bit of wind shear, we're going to have to watch this even more closely. There's a couple of currents over here towards the coast that we need to keep an eye on. definitely hoping I don't see anything form over in this particular region here. Or if I can get it to go here. There we go. But this particular region here is the area I'm most concerned about right now, because this is where the water seems like it's been the warmest and still is right now. So that's definitely something I'm going to be keeping an extra close eye on. So make sure we're staying extra aware across this region here. This area is very susceptible to tropical systems here. We've already seen a couple of cases of that last year, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see another case. Hoping for the best here. Maybe that won't happen, but if it does, at least we'll keep you up to date here. But that being said, that's the end of this video for today. It's been Tire Metalhead Weatherman. If you found the video useful, you know what to do. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, decimate that share button. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care, and I'll see you in